Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, all the students in MGB 370, Personal and Professional Development. I want to run through some key features of LinkedIn, which I think is the most powerful social media networking tool available, particularly for those people who are looking for jobs in the professional area. So it's ideal for our students, and if you haven't got a LinkedIn profile, I strongly urge you to get one, and I'm hoping this brief presentation will assist you in that regard. And I'm hoping for those that do have one, this will give you an opportunity to start to upgrade and change some of the particular features and improve your whole presentation on LinkedIn and some of the interactive qualities as well. There are at the moment 440 million users of LinkedIn worldwide, and naturally many of those people are employers. So it's a wonderful opportunity to get on board, and I know myself that a lot of professional recruiters actually go straight to LinkedIn and they start looking up people's details on LinkedIn. So it's a very convenient search tool for potential human resource recruiters or recruiters. So let's talk about a few features that are critically important. I'm going to use my site, I guess, just to illustrate a few key points. You'll notice up here there are a number of different buttons, and I think they're very important to have a look at. You can edit your profile here. You can view, you can see who has viewed your profile, which is always interesting, particularly when you've applied for a job. If that person hasn't switched off their notification, it'll be obvious to you. Let me show you what I mean. So if I click on there, it'll give me a bit of an indication, you know, how many people have been viewing my profile over a period of time, and it'll also give me the people that have been viewing the profile. And you'll notice first means they are actually connections. Second means that they're one step removed, and so on. So you can see that you know, a number of people have viewed it. So it's quite interesting, particularly when you've applied for a job, when you find that the company that you've applied to have obviously been searching your LinkedIn profile. It's fairly easy to find that out through this process. You can also see who's viewed your posts if you choose to use that, and I'll explain that a little bit more. You can also see where you rank in terms of profile viewings, and these are pretty much set up from LinkedIn, so take a little while to come up, but it'll just show you what it means. And this will show you the rank order. So if let's say you've got 500 people in your LinkedIn connections, it'll show you where you fit in as far as those 500. So if you're first on the list, clearly you're the most searched of the 500 that you have on your list. So it can be quite a useful little gauge to determine whether where you're at. Well, that's taking a little long, so let's go through here. You've got My Network, so you've got your own connections. So if you click on there, it'll show you who your connections are. And I think the important thing with connections is that you should be starting to build them up. I think the goal is to try to get 500 as quickly as you can, and you'll be surprised how quickly that can be done if you're smart about it. So, for example, with your colleagues and your friends, they'd be the first people that I'd invite. I'd start building it up that way, and then as you come across people, you can easily go into this search function here, type in their name, click the search function, it'll show you who they are, and you can send them an invite that way. So if you do this on a regular basis, spend a few minutes each day, it's amazing how quickly you can build up your clients. So this, or connections. These are my connections, as you can see. So you've got that access as well. If we continue, you can add connections. You can this function here is very useful because you can look for jobs, look for advertisements. So there's a very good, particularly if you want to travel. you know, you've got an opportunity to see what jobs that may interest you, and you can see there's a whole bunch of jobs there. You can type in keywords. You can actually put in your you know, the places that you're looking for the job. So it's excellent from that point of view. So I'd strongly recommend it for no other reason other than the search function applicability of LinkedIn that you join as soon as possible. One of the things that I think is usually not used effectively by people who are early users of LinkedIn is the groups. The groups can be very powerful. If I click on groups, what it'll do is it'll bring up all of your groups, and what I strongly recommend you do is you join a number of groups, because if you join a number of groups, and I would suggest particularly, let's say you're looking for a job in human resources, I would join up in a number of those particular groups, and the reason being then I would get involved in their discussions and you start to build relationships up with potential recruiters in those fields. Very, very useful. Of course, SlideShare's been purchased by LinkedIn, so SlideShare can be very useful as well. The search function's fantastic, so you just type in a person's name or a job or a company and up will come something there. There are advanced facilities there as well, which will help you to narrow your focus as to what you're looking for. It depends also whether you're a premium user. You can see that I am. Of course, you can use it free. But I think if you're very serious about it, it would be useful to go onto the premium site as soon as possible. You can type in keywords, look for connections, whether they're first level connections, second, group member connections and so forth, and there's a whole lot of interesting things that you can do there that are very useful. So I would have a little play around with that and have a look and see. You'll notice there it's got 5,755,000 results. I haven't narrowed anything down then, but obviously that takes into consideration my second connections and group connections, but I can narrow that down obviously if I want to. Over here you have messages that are sent to you, which can be very useful sometimes. People are more and more inclined to send messages these days than email, so you can keep your eye on that as well, and you'll see whether you've got a message. Here are notifications that can be quite useful, and people that you may know that you may want them to join up with you, and you can, and also if there are people that want you to join, they will also come into this box as well. The home page is not to be underestimated. Let me just show you a couple of things that are important on the home page which can make a difference. You can share, you can publish a post, which can be very, very useful. You can share an update just like you would in, say, Facebook or anywhere else, and that will go on the home page of all of your contacts. And you can see there that there are a whole bunch of home pages or some notifications of interesting articles and so forth. It's not a bad idea to run through that every now and again, because just like on Facebook, there can be some very interesting things that people can observe. So the home page is not to be underestimated. Just gives you a little bit of a summary as well, how many people have looked at your profile in the last 3 days, and so forth. So all good. So let's go to the profile page, because that's really what I want to spend most of my time looking at. And so the goal for you now is to get your home page up to absolute top-notch standard, and there's no excuse not to do this. It's fun apart from anything else, because if you're really serious about using this as an opportunity for your career, then you really need to make sure that your first impression is a good impression. A couple of things that are important here. You'll notice I've got a bit of a background. You can put a picture in here It's very easy to do. My strong advice is to have a photo of yourself. Very important. You'll find that LinkedIn profiles that don't have photos of people are not looked at as much. So a photo there of yourself, of course, as you can see, you can change that photo at any time. Who you are. And in this title part, think carefully about this. Now, if you're not currently employed, you might consider using this as an opportunity to advertise that you're looking for a role in HR or wherever. So actually, I've seen people doing this, professional HR, person looking for an HR professional role or something to that effect. It's got your current role and previous roles and so forth there. You'll notice there when you get to 500, I think I'm almost up to 6,000 LinkedIn connections, but when you get to 500 it'll give you this little indicator there. Below 500 it'll give the numeric number of where you're at, but at 500 it stops. So I'll just click on that so we can get this up to viewing what somebody would view when they were looking at my profile. It's important you fill out this contact information. So if I click on there, you'll notice that it's got, my Facebook and website and my phone number and contact details, my Skype. It's important because if somebody wants to contact you, that's the place they'll go, apart from, of course, sending you a message online, as of course you can do here. This is your LinkedIn address, and if you right-click on that, you will be able to copy the shortcut, and I would strongly recommend that you put your shortcut in your CV, that you put your shortcut in your signature, in your emails. I put it everywhere. It's just another avenue or opportunity for somebody to look you up. So I would strongly recommend cutting and pasting that. You'll notice here that I guess you could say blog a fair bit, so I've got a number of articles that I put there. If you do decide to use this function, and if you enjoy writing and it's your opportunity to put something thought-provoking in there, including an advertisement, for example, to be employed, people can follow you, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a connection of yours. So I've got more followers than I've got connections, because some people just enjoy reading my articles. So they read my articles, but they don't want to actually be a connection. So you've got that facility there. What is really, really important is to get your background summary correct. And there's only a certain number of words that you will be able to use in this part. So think carefully about how you do it. Some people will say you need to use first person, and then others say you need to use third person and so forth. Look, I don't think it matters, but the important thing is that you indicate what value you can add. So that, in other words, it's kind of like an opportunity for you to put your best foot forward. So perhaps talk about your strengths, talk about your values, talk about some of the achievements that you have accomplished. You need obviously to keep it short. You can see that you've got access here to putting some pictures and also some videos as well. So if you choose to do that, that's fine. I don't think that's a bad thing, actually, to put a video and have you talking there as well, because it just humanizes the whole site. Now, if I go down here, the next heading I've got is skills. Now, you can actually monitor this. You can actually move these headings around, skills, experience, and so forth. You can actually move them around. I strongly urge you to move your skills part up to just under your summary. Why? Because it's a snapshot of the skills that you can offer a future employer. Now what happens, of course, is that people can actually indicate what skills you have, and what you can end up having is 100 of these things floating down the page. I don't think that's a good idea. You can switch those facilities off over here under privacy and settings. So you can switch those things off. You'll notice I've only got 5 now, because at the end of the day I just want to be noted for 5 things, and there they are, and I've got the maximum number of endorsements in those 5 things. There are probably another 100 odd buried somewhere in the back, but I don't want them shown because it doesn't look tidy, and I would rather just be noted for 5 things. So try and focus on the key words that you want and create for yourself a nice, neat, short skills profile. Then you can put in your experience, and that's probably no different to what it would be if it was, in a resume, in a typical traditional resume. If you've worked for companies that are on LinkedIn, you will find that those companies themselves, their logos will automatically come up, and you can use those logos if you choose. The other thing that's quite important here is you'll notice that I've got some endorsements, and these endorsements can be very, very valuable. You don't need hundreds of them, but half a dozen wouldn't go astray. So what these endorsements will do is promote you. So they'll talk about what your strong, so it's like a reference, if you like, a modern day reference. And I can tell you now from experience that the fastest way to get these references is for you to write a reference for somebody else. So what you do is you can offer to write a reference for somebody else, and of course the reciprocal can occur. Then they can write one for you, and then these start to appear, they will appear in your profile, which is very, very important. So those references can add some value to what you're doing. As I said, you put your titles in. You can cut and paste, or you can actually upload pictures. You can upload videos, and so forth. And so make sure that all that information is exactly what you want in there. So my suggestion is get your CV up to standard, and once your CV is up to standard, you can then start to include everything that's on your CV in this electronic format. What organisations do you belong to? I have said to the students that are in my groups that it's really a good idea to join the Australian Human Resources Institute as a student, and obviously there's a fee involved, but it does demonstrate a commitment to the association or the organisation, and that becomes very important. Don't hesitate to put in your voluntary experience and causes that you have been involved in, and I have done just that. It's probably a good idea to think carefully about that, which rounds out your experience. Any honours or awards that you have achieved should go in this section here, and that's a good thing, and spell out what it means as well, so it gives people a good opportunity to see what your experience has been. In my case, I have a number of publications that I have listed here, which is a good opportunity to promote your publications. It's up to you whether you utilise that or not, but it's another avenue open to you, and certainly you need to fill out the education part. And the reason for that, of course, is that people want to see that you've got the requisite qualifications to do the job. So put that in. Even if a degree or qualification is not completed, you can still put it in there and say partially completed. A future employer doesn't necessarily need to know what your GPA is, but they probably want to know where you're up to in your qualification. So put all that material in. Anything else that might be useful here, any accreditation that you have. In my case, I've got a few accreditations. Any interests as well, put them in here. You can put your birthday, you can put your email address and contact details in there as well. If you're bilingual, it's a very good idea to make sure that you indicate that here because that can be quite useful for some forms of employment as such. And you've got all the testimonials here that I mentioned earlier before, and here are some of the groups that I happen to be involved in. So make sure you've got a list of groups that you can join. You usually have to be invited. You can see I've got 40 odd groups, and some of those I don't dabble in much and others I dabble in a lot, but it is a very good way of making connections with people and particularly future employers, because remember, when you're in a group situation you can go and investigate who's in the group or who's in the conversation, and you know, if they're obviously a manager in a firm, you know, in other words a potential employer, that can be very useful to know that information. Some of the people, some of the influencers that I follow are down here, some of the companies and so forth. So I guess if there's homework in this case, and there should be, what we would all like you to do is to start to go back to your summary, and if you've already got a summary statement, go back and recraft it, go back and write it and make it compelling, because you want people to read that, which is very, very important. Okay, so that would be there, and then I would start to really spend some quality time going through and making the necessary changes that you need to on your site. As I said before, if I go to privacy and settings, you have an opportunity in, it's a very simple process. You've only got 3 levels of, you've got the account itself and you've got privacy. So here's where you can switch on and off email notifications, and I would go through and be very particular. You can block people, you can do all sorts of things in here, and it's really up to you to have a good look through there and see what's useful. And you've got another tag which is communications, which talks about how frequently you'd like to receive emails, who can actually send you invitations and the messages. You've got your group notifications as well. That can be very, very effective. I find that when I'm active in a group, I will often change this setting to yes, so that what happens is that I will get a notification whenever somebody's commented on a group that I happen to be involved in. So if it's an interesting issue where I'm adding my comments about, I can then receive in my inbox notification that somebody's made another comment about either my comment or the question that we're talking about. So that can be very powerful, because that way you don't need to go back into the group unless, of course, you get notification that something's happened there. Now, obviously, some groups are very active and others aren't, and I'm just going to actually show you what that means, because if I just go onto groups for a moment, you will I think there's a limit to the number of groups, but I think it's quite a high amount. I think it's over 40, and certainly in my case I have over 40. You don't need to join 40. In fact, you're probably better to join a few and be engaged in them more readily. So those sorts of things can be very, very helpful. You've got these groups here that you can have a look at. People management, obviously that would be of interest to people in HR. You can scroll down, you've got the Harvard Business Review, which could be a very useful one to be involved in, Australian Institute of Management, and these are all the groups that I happen to be involved in. So let's look at an HR one, for example. So I'll just click on that group. You'll notice that it tells you how many people are members, which can be very important. the idea would be to join groups where there are large memberships. Reason being, of course, you've got greater access to broader numbers of people. So in this case, HR Professionals has got over 290,000 members. Now, not all those people obviously are completely engaged, but you will find that many are, and that can be very, very useful. So, you know, in this case, if you're in HR, this would be a good one to join. And then because I've joined, obviously, you can see here, you can leave at any time or you can join. So you can join and you can be invited in. You can start a conversation at any time, so you can ask a question, or of course you can respond to anybody else's statements as well. So that's very powerful. And of course, you can go on and click on these links, which will take you to the person who's sponsoring that conversation or that discussion, and have a look and see what who they are and so forth. So I strongly recommend doing a little bit of work in that space. There are lots and lots of HR professional groups online, and I would join a few of those to start with. And apart from anything else, it becomes very interesting because you're getting perspectives on a whole range of practical matters with regard to HR. So it's certainly worthwhile. So that's your group settings. I just wanted to show you something in terms of editing. So if I click on edit, I just want to actually show you the edit function as such. So you can see, as I said before, you can edit your background, you can edit this, edit your title, edit anything basically. But what I wanted to show you, because a lot of people don't realize this, that I can actually move these clumps, if you like, you know, summary or whatever, I can actually move them up and down the profile. So I can actually arrange things how I want them to be arranged. That's why I pushed up the skills one. Normally it comes a lot lower in someone's profile. Well, I actually bumped it up under the summary because I thought after reading my background, then people may want to be, you know, they want to know what I specialise in or what are my key interests. Well, there they are at a glance. And there's a whole bunch of other things, of course, people have indicated, as I said before, but they're not available because I've switched those facilities off. And that, again, is available through privacy and settings. So you've got that opportunity there to edit. And so take this seriously, get it right, eliminate spelling mistakes, you know, make it interesting, put some pictures and photos in there that can make it very much more interesting. As I said, what can happen here is that when you work for a company, if the company's on LinkedIn, and of course if you hover over that, it tells you a little bit about the organisation and so forth, which can be very, very effective. So that's a little bit about LinkedIn. You can, you know, it's very good for finding people. If, for example, you get an interview and you're interested to know a little bit about the people interviewing you, type their names in if you know who they are. Have a look through their LinkedIn profile and try and understand a little bit about their orientation, because that will help you in the job interview. You can also, of course, type in the company profile here and it'll give you a bit of a detail about the organisation. So if I just put QUT in there, for example, you've got here, this is a pretty typical profile, you've got here, you can follow, you've got a home, the notable people that have attended or been there, students and alumni recommendations, where people are from and where they're working, an opportunity for you to say something because I happen to be in that group, and, you know, some various comments there. So that can be very powerful as well. Okay, I think that's probably enough at this stage. So what I strongly recommend now is to get this up and running, and what I would do is I would work with your colleagues in your groups, send them invitations, get them to do the same, build up your networks, aim to get, with all of these things, of course, it's quantity rather than, it's quality rather than quantity. So it's no good having 10,000 people on LinkedIn if they're not the sort of people that you really need to talk to. So you're better off having a couple of hundred people who are quality connections than 1,000 people who are not. It's the same in any social media situation. There are many other things you can do. You can even segment your database. So you've got the opportunity. Here are your connections. You can actually divide them up according to geography. You can divide them up according to interests. You see, here are all of mine, but I can change. I can filter them in different ways. So, for example, if I click on there, you can tag groups of people. It does take a bit of time to do this, but it can be very useful, because then you can send out, 100 or 200 letters or communications through LinkedIn, which can be targeted at a particular group of people, which can be very valuable. So this has been sorted by recently added. I can sort it by last name or first name as well, and I can search as well. So that's very important. I would not have that available for people who are coming onto your site. You can switch that off again under privacy and settings. So I wouldn't, unless I think the default position is that people can actually see that information. You probably don't want people to see that information, and I think it would probably be under privacy. And you can, who can see your connections, okay? So in my case, I've said only you, but if you don't change that, everyone will be able to see them. Now, why is that important? Well, I mean, then they can sort of say, people can come to your site and go straight to your contacts and say that they know you, and use that as a bit of an entree without actually getting. So that's not a good thing. Okay, so that's probably pretty much it. Any questions or comments? You've got my email address, so please get stuck into your profile, make it the very best that you can, and that would be a good starting point. Thank you very much for your time.